And my rule is like, if an animal can kill you,
turn your
do
back
not turn your back on it. You need to know if you're going to die. Look at it now.
You don't want to, and here's the thing. You don't want to see your own death coming through a cell phone screen.
Butterscotch.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 101 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam. I'm the HTTP request authorizer.
I'm Sam, and I'm the VEC deck.
Nice. I'm not sure what that means, but I like it.
It's like a PEC deck for vectors.
Oh.
What's a pec deck? Oh, like the exercise equipment.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so you can juice your vex. Get
flex those.
swole. Also, today is June 6th, 2017. Before we started, we have a warning. Anything could happen on this show. There's going to be some bad words. So if you don't want those, get out of here.
It's also 6-6, which is 2/3 of the devil's number.
2/3 of the devil.
Yeah, so watch out. 2/3 of a devil.
Something
Coming at you.
Something a little bad might happen today.
But there's just 2/3 bad.
It's 2/3 bad. It's going to be 1/3 fine.
Yeah, so when something bad happens today, be like, that could have been 50% worse.
Yeah.
Because as we all know, 3/3 is 50% more than 2/3.
Which is really confusing.
It is
I'm going to be
confusing.
honest. So
Yeah.
that's what made me angry.
Every time you're using percents, you should always just step back and think, this probably doesn't mean what I think it is. It's very confusing.
Whenever you're thinking about percents, just think, I'm wrong. I'm wrong about this.
Fractions are hard.
Fractions are hard, percents are harder, and it's even harder if you mix them.
Although the one that drives me the craziest is when people say something like, it's twice as slow.
Well, think about this.
You're
though.
like,
What the fuck does that mean?
Think about this though. The
That could
opposite
mean
of
so many things.
opposite of 2/3 is 3/2, which is 150%.
I mean,
Right?
I know that. That's true.
Right? So 2/3 times 3/2.
What do you mean the
Is
opposite?
one.
It's the inverse, right?
It's not the opposite, but it is the inverse.
It's the
The
inverse.
opposite would be negative 2/3.
Yeah.
Mm.
Slippery.
No,
with
the
your
opposite
language.
would be G. That's the
true,
opposite
yeah,
of
that's
2/3. All right. So let's get into the news. The news is this week, some things happened.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it. First thing, we got over 1,600 ratings on the Shenanigans.
Yeah.
Is that as in like 1,600 person check mark thingies, or like, because each one has multiple ratings too. That's like
Each-
5 categories.
So we had
batch of
100.
them.
So the
Each
Shenanigans, just to recap, the Shenanigans was game jam that we threw together last weekend, a couple weekends ago, and it was to celebrate our 100th podcast episode, and we got 132 game submissions in the Shenanigans, which was super cool.
Mm-hmm.
But even cooler is we opened up those games for rating so that people could get feedback about how well they did, and they could kind of see just where their game landed, sort of in the hierarchy. And we had categories like balance, fun, weirdness, graphics, music, stuff like that.
And
so
graphics.
graphics, yeah,
Please pronounce
graphics.
it correctly.
And so in order for a rating to be counted, you had to rate every category. So if you go to a game, you check all the boxes, you say how good it was in every category, that counts as one rating. And so there were over 1,600 ratings, which means on average, any given game was rated something like 15-ish times, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Wild.
So everybody really took it seriously.
Yeah,
made it a point. Some people I probably went through and tried to rate every game.
I know some people definitely did.
And there was also not a Twitch streamer, but a Mixer streamer, which I don't know what Mixer is, but I think it's like
just Twitch.
It's a streaming service. And they are still to this day playing the Shenanigans games because they put out a schedule where they have like a 12-day schedule. Every day they're going to play, 10 to 15 Shenanigans games.
Awesome. Yeah. I want it to
so-
be impossible for them next time because we have so many games.
There you go. Step it up.
Yeah. Well, the goal is to get so many games that they
Can't finish by the next
They
time
can't finish by the
Shenanigans
next
comes.
Shenanigans Jam, and then they're just in a
Our games
perpetual-
will blot out the sun.
They're just in a perpetual hellish whatever, just treadmill of game playing. So that's pretty cool. We're
Yeah, it's
really
cool.
excited.
We
Everybody's-
looked at a few of the top sort of crop of them, and I think we'll probably be putting a video together sometime in the end of this week or beginning of next week, which is just a playthrough where we get to go through and dive into a bunch of the top rated games and see kind of how they fare. There's a few of them that look really cool.
Yeah.
which I'm really excited about. So.
Yeah. And also, of course, the rating was part of our own selfish motivation of we don't unfortunately have time to play every game.
Correct.
But we wanted to do a thing where we make a YouTube video and kind of show some of the cool games that came out of this thing. But in order for us to figure out what games were the best, it would just take a really long time to play through them all and make judgments like that. So we offshored it to the community to figure out which games were the most, polished and everything like that. So we're going to grab, the top whatever, make a little cool video out of it. Also, we have been working on our next game, which came from the Shenanigan Jam. It's internally being referred to as Snuppies. The original name was Snuppy Rustlin'. We don't know what the final name is going to be.
Probably not that.
It's definitely not Snuppies. But we're also kind of doing a little bit more of an open development model for this thing. It seems like just because of the fact that it came out of the jam, which means we can't really keep it secret, because it's out there. And so we've actually made the patch notes publicly accessible, which is also
the Bitly link for it.
Yeah. bit.ly/Snuppies patch notes.
Nice. All lowercase?
All lowercase. Okay. Yeah. Right. And that's also the place where we are we are dumping our design repositories. So when we come up with ideas that we want to put into the game, those are going into there. You can also see all the things that are on deck, the things that are currently being worked on. And so it's just a Google Doc that we're just kind of actively updating. But I don't know. It's
if you're interested to see how the sausage is made, then go look at that.
Yeah.
And so wish you hadn't seen it.
Yeah. And so we treat every day basically as a new incremental version of the game. And so you'll see on our patch notes, you'll just see, version 0.0.5 with a date on there. And then you'll be able to see what changes went into the game. And so it's already departing pretty significantly from the jam version, and it's only going to continue to do so. And we're also really taking advantage of our new skeletal animation tool or toy or whatever we want to call it to overhaul all the characters and make some really cool, just totally bizarre things.
Yeah. So the first deck that we're building out is this really aggressive play style deck, which has a lot of sort of retaliation style moves in it. So things that trigger when one of your buddies gets hit by something, the buddy will retaliate and do something either to players around them or to the main player themselves, or things like the Dying Wish concept or Death Rattle from Hearthstone, which we call Last Breath. So if they die, then they do something terrible also. So it's this really aggressive feeling deck, and the sort of vibe of the creatures that go with it are what we refer to as horn squooshes. So
yeah,
there were some weird combination between like a gel and a crab and lots of pokey things, and they for some reason oftentimes just hold their eyes.
Yeah, they've got an unusual relationship with their eyes.
Yeah.
I mean, where else are you gonna put them? You don't just want to leave them laying around.
Aren't we all just holding our eyes?
Yeah,
yeah. With our eye socket hands.
My favorite character so far is Sam and Tifa are coming up with these character concepts, and then they're like, "Here we go. This character is like it kicks things." Okay, and it's literally a foot with an ankle and then a hand on top of the ankle holding an eyeball. And they hand this off to me, and I'm like, how am I supposed to animate this? This doesn't have a lot of parts. This doesn't have a lot of parts. I got it though.
Yeah,
it's like a weird floppy spring.
It's like the lamp from Pixar. That's actually what it looks like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So when it jumps, it kind of like bends forward and then like whips its head back and flips itself up.
Can't wait to see if it kicks something across the map.
Yeah, so to make it kick things, we'll have to do a backflip thing. And the other fun part is in the jam game, when your characters steal a Snuppy, that's like the goal of the game is to steal Snuppies. When your characters stole a Snuppy, the Snuppy would just kind of be drawn on top of their head because it's a jam game and whatever. Yeah. And so now we had to make sure that with these more elaborate animations that the Snuppies draw themselves in the right place. And so now the Snuppies have like a carry point that they get sort of attached to on the character. And so it's especially funny with this character that's like whipping its head around because the Snuppy gets like stuck to its head. And then when it's like whipping its head around, the Snuppy is being whipped around with it. And it's pretty exaggerated and hilarious. So, so we got all kinds of cool stuff. Yeah. If you want to keep an eye on that.
Are we posting any, GIFs and stuff publicly, or what are we going to do?
I don't know. We got to figure out, because we've been keeping things pretty under wraps for our other game project, our bigger game project.
Code name, whatever we said the code name was.
Yeah.
But brunch, I think.
Is it?
It's been a long brunch.
It's been a long brunch. We've had many mimosas.
Yeah, we're all messed up on mimosas. But I think I don't know. We're keeping pretty open on this one, and we do have a Snuppy's channel in our community Discord as well. So, we're just going to be talking about it.
Yeah,
whatever comes out. I guess
we may do some devlog stuff. I think later on once we get a few of the visual changes done.
Yeah, once it's a little
so
more
it looks a little more. Yeah, because the things like we're still actually very much in flux as to how it's going to turn out, and so like whether or not the big discussion today was whether or not there will actually be cards.
Yeah.
So
right.
literally everything's on the table.
Everything's up for grabs.
So things are they're very wibbly wobbly right now. This is the early stages of development. So the problem we had with Crashlands was actually that by talking about it so early, so many articles that came out around launch time referenced the stuff from our original blog post.
But it was usually just
wrong.
the images.
It was usually just images.
People would take new updated store descriptions and stuff, and then they would just search for Crashlands. Well, the first images we ever posted were the ones that had the most views because they were just on the internet longer.
Right.
So you Google Crashlands and you see this old ass GIF of outdated art with mechanics that don't exist.
Yep.
And then it'd be like, here it is. And they just put that in their article.
That's the one thing
You
we're
gotta
trying to figure
avoid
out.
that.
Yeah. how to
and
do
then that propagates that image. That image gets
Well,
more
we
views.
could just use Snapchat because it's all temporary anyway.
Get a snap story going.
Yeah, whatever that means. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Got
But then we'd have to do that.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
can
the
we-
problem with
there
that.
is
Can we
that.
not?
That's the problem with that strategy.
we
do
could
that.
definitely not do
We
that.
could just not do it. All right, so that's kind of where Snuppies is, or whatever the hell
I'm really
it's called.
excited for this one.
It's going to be good.
We also realized that I think part of the secret to our magic sauce.
I know what you're going to say, but
You
we
hold it?
have a question about this.
Oh, okay,
So
sure.
we'll hit that at a
Okay,
moment.
sure.
Okay. But also, speaking of people being interrupted, you have an interrupted hiking story.
I do.
What does this mean?
Okay, so that's a fantastic segue. So,
Great. Solid.
so last Saturday, my wife and I wake up and we're like, let's go outdoors. Let's go get some
Out of doors?
vitamin nature in our bloodstreams, and
In your BSs?
and we Google around and we find there's this trail outside of St. Louis called the Lewis and Clark Trail. It's got tons of great reviews.
Are you sure it's not Lois and Clark Trail?
Yes,
Okay.
and
The trail's a lot harder to climb. It's
And
gotta
the basic
fly.
point is that after about 20 minutes of going through this trail, you end up on these bluffs and stuff because Missouri actually has a bunch of these like limestone bluffs and all this stuff. Once you get kind of outside of the St. Louis proper area, so we drove out there, really excited because I haven't actually gone hiking in a while, and also like the shingle stuff kind of finally started dying down last week, so I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And get out there, and we pull up to the part where like we're almost to this place, which is very remote, out in the middle of nowhere, and there's like a traffic person sort of like handling some traffic. And then we see a ton of runners. And Diane and I both are looking at each other like, what was happening? And so we pull into the parking lot for this trailhead, and there's like 80 people there. And there's some music, and there's like some big race flags. And we pull up, and Diana's like, I don't know if we should go in there because I think they're running a race
you should go
on
in
the
there.
trail. And I was like, no, like we're here. Let's do it. I'm sure it's not gonna be that bad. It looks like they haven't even started yet. It didn't look like they started. So I was like, they might be starting at like 9 because we got there about 8:20 or so. So I said, let's just get going. And so she's like, all right. So we throw on our stuff, start walking, and immediately get beset by mosquitoes. So just like, and we had bug sprayed up like crazy, but just
What kind of bug spray did you use?
I don't know, just like the deep.
You want to
woods
use
one.
You want to use Axe. That really just
Yeah, Axe
kills
is
the
really
mosquitoes.
It
on
keeps
contact.
literally everything.
It's
away.
everything will be dead.
And it's also best if you, because it's also super flammable. So if you just light it so that you're just on fire.
Yeah, what you
flame.
want to do is just douse yourself in Axe, set yourself on fire.
Yeah.
And then take
Mosquitoes.
a calm walk through the woods.
Yeah, so it's kind of like
It's really good mosquito repellent.
You know how there's those candles like when you burn them.
Citronella.
Yeah, so if you do that,
Yeah.
but just on yourself, just
Yeah.
it keeps those mosquitoes.
Well, yeah, so apparently I didn't apply the repellent correctly.
Yep.
But
Well,
so we're
next time.
walking through the woods getting eaten alive. And then about every 20 seconds, about 2 minutes into our journey, but every 20 seconds, a runner runs by. So again, like we're trying to get out in the woods to be away from humans. And then every 20 seconds, like clockwork. And the trail is narrow enough that
You have to get off it.
we actually now can't walk next to each other. So
Yeah.
we can't even like have a conversation while this is happening. We have to walk single file to make room for this endless stream of runners that every 20 seconds is blitzing by. And so after about 10 minutes, it's like we're walking in, and I think both of us were hoping that it was going to stop or something.
It's like a
But it
weather
just kept
event.
going.
It turned out it was
It's
a marathon.
So it did. So okay, so here's the thing. It's an 82-mile trail race, relay race. You can do it with a team of 3 or 6.
Oh, so it's like people just running marathons back to back. as a
Basically.
relay.
Just all day.
And it takes the whole day. And so we get through, we're walking, and then at some point we stop because we had to like step off because there's another couple runners, and then we got passed by this Boy Scout troop of like 15 people. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, it's like being in Chicago on the streets. I was like, what is happening?
You're supposed to be in nature.
And so we stop, and then I like the cloud of mosquitoes like stops with us, and I see them for the first time.
And they're huge.
And
right?
they're
they're
just
like the size of
they're
mice.
making eye
It's like
contact.
a Jurassic Park sort of a situation.
Yeah, we're staring at each other
Or
down.
fucking Jumanji.
Yeah.
They're like stabbing through your backpack.
Yeah, and I was like, Diana, look at each other, and we start, trying to spray up on the bug spray. And at some point, I was just like, "Fuck this!
Yeah.
I didn't come here for this.
Just fuck this.
Fuck." And so we book it back. So we take us like
So you joined
10
the
minutes.
race, basically.
Basically going the other way. And of course, every
Like salmon.
now every like 15 seconds or so, because we're going against the flow, another
now
runner
you're
comes
hitting
by.
more runners.
My favorite part was every time they'd be like, "Oh, good morning,"
And you're like,
and
fuck me. It's
Diana-
not a good morning.
Diana
It
would be
was.
like, "Hey," and then we get back, and then we were laughing because it was, that there's that phrase, an attempt was made.
Yeah.
Like that's what that felt like, because it took us half an hour to drive out there. So we were there for half an hour before we got enraged and left, and it took us. So we
So
drove more.
You didn't go for a hike, but you did make a hiking attempt.
Yes, an attempt
For a
was
whole
made.
morning.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's not about the destination. It's about
being interrupted constantly.
It's about getting harassed by people, mosquitoes,
Yeah.
whatever. But I think it's fair to say that with the mosquito stuff, you did get a lot of nature.
I did.
So
It was
nature
inserted
got a
into
lot
my
of you.
bloodstream.
Yeah.
yeah,
Sort of give and take.
Well, I mean, remember, like
Give and take,
nature
really.
used to be just a thing that killed people all the time, right?
That's true.
So I think the best way to get close to nature is to have nature just eat you a little bit, because that's
and
truly what brings you back
it's a
to your
good
roots. Yeah.
reminder.
So I mean, like the best thing to do, I think, is to go on a paleo diet, like our ancestors did, and then just go get eaten by things.
Offer
Well, it
yourself
depends
up.
on which ancestors you're talking about, though, because
Yeah.
the paleo diet, people eat like lots of nuts and berries and stuff. But if you want to do just like an Inuit paleo, just go
Yeah, yeah.
straight for blubber.
Yep.
Just nothing but blubber.
But then also
all day, every day.
get eaten by a beluga whale.
Get eaten by a beluga
which
whale.
is a little
That's part
tricky
of the
because they're
paleo
not great at
diet.
eating people, but
They have huge molars.
yeah,
That's all
they
I got.
do.
Yeah,
It's really
you
painful.
gotta
They're
really,
basically big
get
cows.
yourself in there.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Did you guys see that video of that sea lion grabbing someone off of a pier?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great.
It's incredible.
Pretty terrifying.
Isn't this interesting though? How people talk about like the beauty of nature and being like, I want to
Oh,
go out
dude.
into nature and
So
stuff.
this-
And
There's this
That's
park.
because we don't have it anymore.
Well, there's this park.
we get
so
to
we've
have
romanticized
we get
it.
to have we get to take it in small doses.
Well, weirdly, in St. Louis, there in the surrounding area of St. Louis, there's a tiger sanctuary. There's
What?
like within an hour of the city. There's a worldwide bird sanctuary which has like all the raptors in it, of course. So tons of huge eagles.
But
How
not
close-
Velociraptors?
Not
though?
velociraptors.
Okay.
There's a lone elk park.
Just so one elk is in there.
No,
Yeah.
there's just a shitload of elk and then
Well,
bison.
That's false advertising.
And when you go into the bison area, like the elk one, you can walk around and like go on trails and stuff, but you have to be in your car and you drive over this gate. It feels like you're going into Jurassic Park. Like it is this huge iron gate,
But
and it's got like
they don't play Jurassic Park music on your way.
No,
in 'cause
they
it's
definitely should.
missing the opportunity.
and then you see these things and they're just enormous. But the crazy, so Diana and I went to Lone Elk and we're walking around, and the elk are super chilled out for whatever reason. They just don't give a shit. So they're all just kind of sunning themselves in this huge pack right next to the visitor center.
Mhm.
And of course, these are enormous animals.
Yeah, they could kill you.
They could kill you just if they wanted to. You would die. There's nothing you can do about it. And
You can't punch your way out of that
no,
scenario.
and it blew my mind because people were just like strolling on up, like having a conversation, and then they would want to take a selfie.
Yeah, so they
And
just
my
get
rule
right
is
next
like,
to
if an animal can kill
Don't
you,
turn your
do
back
not turn your
to
back on it. You need to know if you're going to die. Look at it now.
You don't want to, and here's the thing. You don't want to see your own death coming through a cell phone screen, because you're gonna be looking at that selfie and you're like, I feel like this elk is getting closer.
That's true.
That reminds me of, I saw some video of a guy getting out of his car and running up towards a tornado. Like he was
take a-
videoing it
to
the whole
take a
time,
selfie?
and they turned it towards himself to take a selfie.
And then he died.
And then he ran back to his car, and then like it started driving. And like things were hitting his car as he's going. I was
my
like,
God.
"What kind of a fucking insane person?"
It's weird now because like you can't. It's like if you take a picture of something, if you're not in it,
You weren't really there.
it doesn't count.
Well, I think
you
it
gotta
doesn't
you
count.
got to make sure you squeeze your narcissism
really odd.
into every.
But I think
photo.
it's true that it actually doesn't count because since everybody has a camera everywhere they go now,
Oh,
there's
you
a picture
really
of
can't
everything.
tell. It's actually like thumbprinting stuff.
So
right?
it's, but this is
it's
also
your
why I
watermark.
just don't take pictures of things because why not just enjoy them instead?
That's true. But anyways, like these elk, people are just walking up within like maybe 10 yards, which I guarantee you an elk could just jump and fucking kill you. Like it would be done. It would be done in a second.
Yeah.
And they're just strolling up and then chatting loudly and then taking pictures. And then especially when the camera shutter goes off on a selfie phone next to a huge animal, it's like, ka-ching!
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Or imagine if one of those phones started ringing.
Yeah.
Some kind of crazy music.
Oh, somebody probably used like a tiger noise as their ringtone or something.
Yeah, you're right.
You know?
People have no fear.
Well, this was
They have no
like
fear.
my story from our Squeaky Elk episode when we went to the Rocky Mountains at Estes Park, and there was elk mating season, and you'd see like 20 cars pulled up because there was a male elk trying to attract mates. People would get out of their cars and they would form a circle around the animal to take pictures of it. Do not do this. These are murder machines.
They're murder beasts.
Don't surround it and make a lot of weird noises.
Why is it that people don't understand? Is it
Because
I think we're
so far from nature. Like we always have walls, we always have a roof over our heads.
But it can't just be that. Is it also because every time we're shown animals, it's like in the context of cute cartoons where they're your buddies?
Yeah. People need to know.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a PSA.
these used to be
Animals will kill you.
These These used to be things that like entire tribes of people would spend generations perfecting how to murder these animals without getting killed in the process, because you would. So just don't stay in your car. Just take pictures from afar.
Animals are dangerous.
Dangerous. Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Wonder
Saw
Woman.
that thing on Sunday. I'm just
haven't
going to
seen
say,
it.
really damn good.
Yeah.
You do yourself a favor. Maybe do some friends and your family a favor. Go see that movie.
I know a lot of people were
You
concerned.
mean by leaving them and not being in their company, or by
Yes.
taking them with you to
No,
also see the
just
movie?
leave them behind. Go enjoy it by yourself.
Nice.
And I know a lot of people were concerned because this is DC we're talking about. And
That was
their track record has been medium as of late.
One of the funniest things I saw was there's big article on the impact of the movie, and it's just blowing up all over the place. And it's talking about it's the biggest box office hit by a female lead, I think, and then by a director as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just crushing a bunch of things. And so there's this article written up, I think it was on Polygon.
Like $100 million its opening weekend or something.
Yeah, the first comment was like, I don't know how I'm going to explain this to my son. And then the next
I
response,
assume as a joke.
the next response, someone was like, what do you mean? And he goes, I mean that DC finally made an actually good movie.
The whole
Ooh, double
I was like,
joke.
ooh, you got me.
The whole world is topsy turvy.
Yeah, so definitely go do yourself a favor. Go check it out. Really good. And I think also good. It's a good movie theater movie, because watching movies like that with an audience that kind of reacts a little bit is a lot of fun. So we went on Sunday and it was packed at noon. Went to matinee, and then people, of course, are reacting, clapping after the movie's done, and all sorts of
And then
stuff.
taking
It's a lot of fun.
selfies because they
I'm
don't
sure,
realize
yeah.
that movies can kill you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dangerous.
Don't take selfies at the movie theater.
Also,
That screen will
PSA,
fall right on your
there's
head.
not a post-credits scene, so don't wait around like we did when you have to pee really bad.
Yeah, it's not a
because-
Marvel
It is
movie.
DC, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
DC doesn't give a fuck about
is there a word for that yet?
But
For the scene that comes after the credits?
It's just
I'm
called
getting
a post-
tired of calling it the scene that comes after the credits or the
Post-credits.
post-credit scene.
Yeah.
We got trailers. That comes before.
it. It's
Which is weird.
It's credits bait, you know?
Which is weird because a trailer is a thing that comes after
it
something.
actually goes behind you,
So it should be
Well, unless you put the cart before the horse.
right.
which is really what a trailer
So
is.
really, the thing that comes after the credits should be a trailer, and the thing that comes before the credits should be a horse.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's now the other way around. So now I guess that part's the horse's ass, I guess.
So that's a horse's ass. That's the
ass.
part.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the
There's a
movie,
great-
Wonder
the
Woman
movie
did not have a
itself-
horse's ass.
The movie itself is a horse body.
Yeah.
There's a great horse's ass after
guys
the
wanna
Guardians
go-
of the Galaxy movie, though. I'll tell you that.
There's like 5 horses.
I haven't
asses.
seen that
Yeah.
one either.
You see that one?
They have multiple horses' asses?
They got
Yeah.
tons of horse asses at the end
Wow.
of
You
You
Guardians
gotta
of
sit
the
there for like another movie.
Yeah.
You're just sitting there watching these credits.
It's
and
like
sometimes
a herd of horse asses.
Interesting.
just bouncing around.
All right, so let's get to some questions. These questions come from podcast.bscotch.net.
Yeah.
If you want to get your questions on future episodes and shape the future of this podcast,
Literally.
perhaps the world,
Definitely.
mostly just this podcast, though, go ahead and go to podcast.bscotch.net and ask us some
But
questions.
here's the thing, though, butterfly effect, you know?
Yeah.
So you will shape the world in unknown and unpredictable ways that are enormous. But you will cause hurricanes.
What's going to happen is you're going to go in there, you're going to ask a question. It's going to take you 3 minutes to think of your question, type it, and then you're going to go run some errands. But because you were 3 minutes late,
You either
all
will
of a
die
sudden-
now or won't die.
all of a sudden you might die. So
Wait. You just said hurricane, and that reminded me of the hurricane, which
your
is
hurricane gel.
this medicine, which is just a lidocaine gel that I've been rubbing on my side for the stupid shingles crap. It's called Curacane.
it numbs your whole everything.
And we were just spitballing the other day during lunch, and we came up with a whole marketing strategy about Category 5 Curacanes and how what a missed opportunity this is for this company to just take the name and own it.
Yeah, they really bungled that one.
Bungled it.
It also turns out you're not supposed to just put that on all the time whenever you want.
But I did.
Just another PSA.
No, that's
This
what
is a very educational.
that's what a Category 5 Curacane is when you rub it on yourself 5 times a day.
Yeah,
and you're
I don't
so
care.
numb.
Then you can never feel again.
Oh, I'm totally fine with that.
You're so numb that if you got hit by an actual hurricane, you wouldn't even notice.
That's also how I feel about. So when I have like a really bad cold or something, and I look at the max dose of
you're like,
anything, I'm like, I could probably take twice that.
I could probably.
I would rather be dead.
If I die, I die. Right. But at least I went down swinging.
He went down doing what he loved.
So this reminds me of
Drugs.
Sam and I were talking about sleep problems. And I was like, there's basically 2 ways about this. If you're having a hard time sleeping, just in general, sort of falling asleep. One is you could do some research on sleep hygiene. Think about things like make sure you don't stare into bright lights like a computer screen for an hour before bed. Don't do anything that's too mentally taxing for an hour before bed.
Just be bored as fuck.
Yeah, make sure to eat. Yeah, but then I was like, or you could, continue to live life as normal right up until the moment you go to bed. Then you lay there for 3 hours.
Super aware.
Super aware, just becoming increasingly agitated that you can't fall asleep.
Yep.
And then the more upset you get, the harder it is to fall asleep. And then eventually you go into the kitchen, you pop open a bottle of whiskey, you take one huge gulp, then you go back to bed.
That is basically the story of my life. Pretty much.
Apparently all of us have used this technique at some point.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the only way.
Where you're just like, my brain will not shut up.
I'm going to kill it.
I'm going to punch it right in the lobes.
To be fair, though, we don't do that often. Don't do that. PSA, don't do that.
That's like a once a month thing.
Don't do
but
that.
Yeah.
Don't
It
rely
does
on it.
happen.
It's actually been a while that I've had to do that.
It does happen often enough.
It's only been a while because I've been taking Benadryl instead.
Yeah.
Which is just whiskey.
It's just whiskey.
It's just whiskey and pill for him.
Really, all drugs are just whiskey.
Yeah.
You
Just
know?
just drink whiskey. Unless you're young.
Yeah, but then you're not listening to this podcast because it's full of
This
inappropriate
podcast
grammar.
is for adults over the age of 21, drinking age
In the United States.
in the United States.
You can be a different age other places.
Yeah.
That's good. It just takes Americans longer to become adults, is all. Just
Seems
extra
like
3
it.
years. Okay. So anyway, I guess we were talking about questions. These questions, all right, podcast at butterscotch.net, blah, blah, blah.
Go
First
there,
question,
be square.
First question comes from Digital Head, who says,
Digital head. Nice.
their body's analog, but
Right.
their head is digital. It's really weird.
They must have a lot of dongles connecting the two.
Yeah, there's a lot of adapters. They get a lot of neck adapters.
I guess that's really what a neck is, though, right? It's just a dongle that
It connects
your head to your
It's an
body.
adapter.
It's an adapter.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, because originally, like the first humans just had their head just directly attached to their shoulders, but there was all kinds of compatibility problems.
Right.
And they
So you had to
couldn't-
put a dongle in there.
yeah, they had to oh shit, we got to finish hooking this thing up.
At some point, we might become too brave, though, and remove it.
It's
You know?
Too brave? Is this such a thing, Adam?
There
I don't
is.
know if there is.
we have the courage
Exactly.
to remove our necks. Because it turns out nobody wants a neck. All right. Digital Head says, I started making games centered around things I hate in other games, like level grinding or overly complicated puzzles, and turning these aspects into something I would actually enjoy playing. How do you feel about this
That's
practice?
exactly what I was going to talk about.
I know. That's why I had to interrupt you and tell you to wait.
Perfect. So we were talking about this yesterday because we realized that Crashlands, none of us actually liked crafting games.
Specifically, some of us actively disliked crafting games.
Yeah.
Does that mean you?
That's me. That's me.
Just check.
And then when we
Since
made
the time we started making it, there were only 2 of us, I guess.
Yeah,
that's right.
So
when we
some of
made
us-
Quadrupus, then that one was we were like roguelikes are dumb.
let's make one.
So let's make one. And the one thing we hated the most was being in a dungeon all the time. So we're like, and then we didn't want to have to draw walls. That's
Why
actually
is
the reason why
every
it's in the ocean.
roguelike in a dungeon?
Because you guys
Tropes, man.
tropes. So there's that one, and then Tower Fight was we hated twin stick shooters.
Yeah.
Also Zelda, the first one. To be honest,
Yeah.
not a fan. So
First, people are going to burn down our entire
whatever,
everything.
let them
Yeah.
burn it.
The graphics sucked.
The graphics.
So
The graphics.
so we take these ideas of things that we hate, and the thing is, when you hate something, I feel like you have a more true understanding of what it is about that thing that upsets you than it was necessarily the case. If you love a thing, what is the thing about that that you enjoy?
If you love a thing, you clone it.
Yes.
If you hate a thing,
You
you
improve
make
it.
new.
Yeah. So we realize it's actually our technique, and all of us actually generally dislike card games. And now we're making a card game.
I hate card games.
See?
Yeah.
So
we're making one.
Adam's probably going to end up being like our lead designer on this because he's going to be like, nah.
Well, I
none of
think
that.
the rationale is if most of your dev team isn't a fan of the genre of thing that you're working on, then if you get that whole group to enjoy this product by
Then you
making
made
all
a
these
good
changes
thing.
to it, then you've made something that can reel people in. And actually, we got this comment with Crashlands. A lot of people would say, "I've never liked crafting games, but for some reason, I just decided to try Crashlands."
It's because we hate crafting games
Yeah,
too.
and I love the shit out of it. Yeah, that's because we took all the stuff that we didn't like about them, and we just didn't do those things. Then we did a bunch of other good stuff too. So
It's a great strategy.
totally recommend.
Yeah.
But so a lot of indie developers talk about make the game you love, make the game that you want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Be the game you want to see in the world.
I think it's more
So
like
we say the opposite.
it's kind of like if you're you get in a relationship with someone who you want to change, you know? It's kind of like that. Where you're like,
Yeah, that's the best way to go
Except that's
about
a
it.
bad idea.
Right.
oh no, it is. But I'm saying in the games context, weirdly, it's a good idea.
Right.
Because you're like, I hate everything about you.
So this is another PSA.
It's another PSA.
Don't get with somebody to change them
Yeah, because they won't.
because they won't.
But if you could rebuild them from scratch,
Like a robot.
Like a
Yeah.
robot.
So if
Yeah.
you could marry a robot, you can do that.
yeah.
yeah.
So just do that. All right, next question comes from Twister, but with a 3. So twist.
Wait, where the- Tweezer?
Twist. Well, it replaces the E.
Is it a 3 that's laying down?
Oh,
So it
I
just
see.
looks like a W?
Nope, it's a regular 3 in sort of normal orientation.
Are you sure it's not just a W?
Nope, yep, that's a 3.
Right,
That's
cool.
definitely a
All
3.
right, carry on.
But there is a W in there, which does look like a 3 on its side.
Mhm.
So just I want to make sure that we're not.
It might actually be a 3 on its side, though. I
It
mean,
might be a 3 on its side.
with UTFA, you never know.
It might be a 3 on its side. The 3 might actually be a W on its side. This
knows?
is very confusing.
Maybe just everything is a 3.
Everything might be a 3 on its side. Twist through says, I think you've said quite clearly that bundles were a terrible idea in previous podcasts.
Yeah.
What made you change your mind? So we did kind of touch on this
We talked about
a
it
few
already.
weeks back, but basically we thought that after doing a bunch of digging, asking a lot of other people who did bundles, turns out they may just be separate markets.
But it also isn't. It's just not as clean as like bundles are bad, right?
Yeah.
Because most bundles still are bad. Because most bundles are people trying to take advantage of developers.
Yeah.
The Humble Bundle is good.
Humble Bundle is, to my knowledge, still like the only one that like
one.
is well respected and everybody agrees that it's.
There are a lot
fine.
of predatory bundles
Yeah.
that just anybody who makes a game day one, they'll come in and be like, hey, that's a nice game you got there. It'd be a shame if we put it in our bundle and ruined everything for you forever. And then people are like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
So
So there are still aspects of bundles that aren't necessarily a good idea, but you just have to know what you're getting yourself into and why you're doing it.
The Humble Bundle's good,
But also
we'll
not.
pass
But
it
it's
on.
not always good, right? It's not like when you launch your game, you don't want to launch. it
don't
into a
bundle,
bundle.
don't bundle your game on launch day.
Yeah, so then it's an important thing to keep in mind is that the general life cycle of Crashlands had been out for a year and some change by the time we did the bundle. So we're well past the
We're deep in the tail.
we're deep in the tail.
We're
So
barely breaking even on
so
expenses. in the
if
office
we
and-
destroyed ourselves, it'd be fine.
It'd be fine.
Because whatever.
Yeah, we'd be fine. So, and also, we have a question from Flabsy. Flabsy says, interesting talk about piracy last time. Also, bear in mind, I don't know when these questions were asked, so
you probably
question,
could put some dates on it.
this question might be 43 years old.
It could be a
Interesting talk about piracy. How do you feel about G2A? Is that a fair way to obtain your game?
Nope.
Considering the recent
This is also
backlash
a bundles
against them?
question,
So this comes
basically.
back to bundles, right? So G2A is basically a Steam key reseller.
So this is referred to as a gray market.
Yep.
Just so you know. And generally, you want to avoid things that are sold on a black market. Things that are sold on a gray market,
Are not technically breaking rules.
right? But it's still a gray market, so it should give you a hint that maybe things aren't quite above board in terms of what's happening there.
We should talk about why though, right? And it's mostly because what's happening is some unauthorized third party because basically there's a license to distribute stuff, right? That is a thing that exists. When we have a deal with the various stores that we have, like Steam and iTunes and so on, the agreement that we have with them that we've signed contractually with them is that they are licensed to distribute the stuff that we make. They have full right to do it and under the certain conditions that are applied and so on, right? When it comes to doing like G2A, we actually have no relationship with G2A. They are not licensed to distribute our games. I'm actually not 100% sure it is even legal. I'm pretty sure it's actually illegal for them to distribute
Maybe.
games. They started to put in some checks supposedly, but so basically what happens is, and this gets coupled with bundles because this is really where the main problem comes from. Because if somebody just like buys your game, decides they don't want it, and then resells their key somewhere, and they basically get their money back and something, like, who gives a shit? It comes out the same, right? But that's not really what people use it for. What they use it for is to try to obtain cheap keys somehow, either when a bunch of keys got leaked and stolen, which is pretty common, or when predatory bundles sell enormous numbers of keys for really cheap without any protection mechanisms that prevent somebody from buying 1,000 of them for a penny a piece, right?
Well, the big thing is actually from credit card fraud.
And credit card fraud.
Because you get the key when you make the credit card purchase before the credit card purchase is revoked.
Right.
And you just have the key. The key doesn't get revoked. And that's the thing to understand. It's like, and I think we do have, I think Steam does have the power now to revoke keys, is it?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they
and
do.
So, and Humble actually will revoke those keys also.
So,
Well, and there's a real cost to that too, because it actually costs, and I didn't even know this until fairly recently, and so probably our listeners don't on average, but if somebody does a chargeback because their credit card was stolen or something, it actually costs the store, whoever sold the thing, it costs them $15, no matter what the price was of the chargeback. So if you buy a game from us for a penny, right, out of something, and then it turns out you did it fraudulently, you didn't just take a game for a penny. Who gives a fuck? That doesn't actually matter, right? But you actually did cause us to have to spend $15 to do that. And this is actually why there are many reasons why things cost what they cost and so on, right? And there are many reasons why when you look at like the app stores and stuff, the cut that they actually give to us seems low, from the outside. And actually in some ways it is. But one of the things that they have to do is they have to eat the cost of all these chargebacks, which consume a really significant percentage of all game sales. And it's especially problematic and dramatic when the things are cheap. So if you're selling $60 games and a small subset of those are a chargeback, then it's not that big of a deal, right? But if you're selling $1 things and the same percentage are fraud, then you actually lose an enormous amount of your revenue just sending it to credit card companies, right? Because some asshole stole somebody's credit card.
Yeah, the thing to understand about G2A is they sort of made these interesting moves in the last, I guess, year or so, trying to appease the developer community who's like, very
Could
annoyed.
you not?
Could you fucking not do this? Could you not provide a marketplace for this? So they've done a few things, and one of which that they've sort of touted around is this idea that if you register with them, so if we go and so our games are being sold, I think last time we checked there were like 4 keys of Crashlands up.
Yeah, we've done a
Which
good
actually
job
isn't
of
that much.
protecting our keys. So
Yeah. So, but if it's the case that your games are being sold there, you can actually go register with them as a distributor. In other words, it's the cart before the horse situation. So they have.
Well, it's a strong arm thing.
So yeah, it's like a protection racket.
Yeah, and then but I think it's like you get 10%. So which is hilarious
Because the idea is supposed to be that you've already sold this key somewhere else.
supposedly.
Is the idea.
Yeah.
And so now someone's going to resell it, and so you get a cut of that resale.
So they're going to keep 90%.
Correct. So this is where you have to understand that I think as far as G2A goes, it basically feels like a continuous slap in the face for developers because they're like, no, it's cool. Like you can just register to distribute with us since we're selling
Since we're
stolen
already just selling your shit.
and then
We're
we'll just give
illegally
you,
selling your stolen goods.
and then we'll just give you 10%.
And we'll keep doing that.
Yeah,
But if you want a little bit of it,
literally the tiniest bit.
tiniest bit we can provide. Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
there have been
it's
times
fucked.
where we've been asked to meet with reps at GDC.
Actually, I
and
met a
stuff like
guy from G2A, I think maybe 2 GDCs ago.
Yeah.
But he had actually come from some other company because we knew him from some other company that we had.
Well, that's the only guy we've known.
Yeah. And it was funny because we started chatting with him and then he then said that he's actually moved companies and was now at G2A. And I couldn't even hide the reaction on my face. And he was just like, I know. He's like, we're trying to work on being better. And I was just like, whatever, dude.
that. Could you just not be
Could you just
bad? Better than anyways.
Yeah.
That's kind of like when people say eating bacon increases your risk of getting this particular cancer by 0.5%. It's all relative, but being better from something that is basically garbage is not really a high
very
bar to
impressive.
set. It doesn't really mean anything, right? So, anyways, next question comes from Menelus. For the life of me, I cannot find the episode in which you discuss the various podcasts you guys all listen to. Or maybe you don't listen to them anymore because of the hot duck challenge. But could you refresh our brains on your faves?
Sure. Well, I'll refresh the hot duck challenge concept real quick. So the hot duck challenge is something we issued a couple 6 episodes back or something like that.
Or like 15.
Was it?
It was a while back.
Okay. Anyway, so
Probably
the whole
3
idea is
years
Time's
ago.
weird.
Yeah.
all you do is turn off all your notifications on your stuff so that you can focus. It's basically the extent of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Pretty straightforward.
and one of the things we talked about was listening to podcasts, and Adam apparently has a habit of listening to podcasts basically constantly.
All the time.
So one of his big pieces for the hot dog challenge was not listening to this podcast while he was doing stuff. So
Focus on the task at hand.
I haven't been listening to podcasts basically at all. I got YouTube Music because it comes with YouTube Red.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so I've just been listening. I just have a playlist that I've been slowly building that I listen to when I drive around.
I have a
And that's
playlist that I didn't have to build because it's just a Danny Baranowski playlist.
nice.
Yeah. Just
So-
if you want a good playlist, just type Danny Baranowski.
Uh-huh.
There's
Done.
your playlist.
Well, yeah, so I've been doing that, but I did actually on the way into work today, weirdly, did listen to a Radiolab episode
Ooh.
about pistol shrimp making bubbles.
Oh, I heard that one.
Is that
It's
is that an
cool.
older one?
It's older. Yeah.
It's an older one, yeah.
Yeah. So I basically I don't really listen to podcasts.
So
guess.
I still do. I just now almost exclusively do it while driving.
Mhm.
Yeah, but now all the things that I have to like chores and stuff, I now try to just think about stuff while I'm doing instead. But I have changed my lineup out a bit, so I can just
All right,
kind of
what
like
you
go through. I got them up on my phone, so I can say. So of course the NPR podcast still, right? So like your This American Life, Radio Lab, that kind of stuff. I've actually been kind of like losing favor over some of them. Like Freakonomics is starting to get like really wishy washy and not actually. I don't feel like I'm learning things anymore. I feel like I'm hearing things that I should be arguing with, which is less fun.
Maybe you've just gotten so smart from listening to Freakonomics.
That's possible. Maybe
that
I now know too much.
You know too much and now you're dangerous.
And so I still listen to My Brother and Me, but that also is taking kind of a weird slant where they seem to be angry at each other all the time. So that's getting a little weird.
Well,
I may drop that one.
And they have started baking in all these other things. Like they have the Munch Squad, which is now they have a show within a show where they pick up press releases from fast food companies.
Yeah.
And go through them.
And then
but it's like,
read them.
but it's always like a 15-minute segment of the hour where it used to be an advice show. And now they've like inserted this other show in the middle of it, which
it's getting weird. So yeah.
Well, they only end up hitting like 4 questions per episode. And the whole point of the podcast is to answer questions.
Yep.
So it's kind of getting weird.
But some phones I picked up. So Something True is pretty good. It's like it's tackling something like stories from the history or footnotes of history or whatever. And they just pick some really weird thing. And this guy, and so it's written by somebody, then read by somebody who has a great like reading voice, you know? And it's just a very strange, goofy stories where they, have some character voices and then make up some bullshit dialogue and stuff. And so that one's quite fun and very enjoyable. And then the other one, then there's one more that I started listening to outside the ones that we talked about in the past, which is the Beef and Dairy Network, which I'd heard advertised before.
I haven't listened to it yet, but it's winning all kinds of awards.
Yeah. And conceptually it sounded incomprehensible. It's just like, cause the advertisement sounds like it's an advertisement for, like a thing called the Beef and Dairy Network, which you then have to explicitly tell you, by the way, this is like a comedy show and this is a joke, right? But you then, as the listener, asking, how could this be funny? What even is this? And so at some point I was just like, I heard enough advertisements, I was like, fine, I'll just give it a shot. It is weird as fuck and quite hilarious. So, awesome. So that one's worth giving it a try. But yeah, otherwise it's the same kind of stuff that I've been listening to most of it. And then also Up First, which is a new NPR thing. So every morning it's 10 minutes and it's just like recapping really what Trump did yesterday, pretty much. Because that's what the news is now.
That's just what the news is.
But it's very well informed. It's now the way that I keep up to date with the news because I don't want to deal with all the rest of it. And it is informed. And it also, like we talked about in a past episode, it's always better to get your news sometime after it happened because then smart people will have thought about it and put it into context for you. Right.
And you won't get all the garbage mixed in.
And so this is a really good way to do it, I think, because it's still recent enough that like you could make decisions based on it if you need to. And feel like you're up to date, but not so close to it that you're just listening to idiots on CNN ramble on about, we may have heard that this is true, but we don't know. Turns out we just talked to some random person on the street about it and they said that this is what happened.
But if it was going to happen, here's what would happen.
Let's make a computer model of it happening.
Yeah, so I had been listening to Freakonomics. I don't listen to quite as many podcasts because I don't commute because I work in my own basement. So
that does help.
Like while I'm walking down the stairs, it just doesn't take long enough.
Right.
To get a whole
podcast. It just take one step every 5 minutes. But I had been listening to, there's a podcast called Make Me Smart.
Yeah, I started that one too.
Which is okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's a really steep demand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like it's usually
lazy demand.
Well, it's kind of like what you were talking about, where it's like a lot of it is sort of news focused.
Yeah,
but it's after the fact. They've thought through the implications. They bring in experts to talk about, at length about whether something actually, like most of the time, what they're trying to figure out is, should this even be a thing that we care about?
Yeah, which
really?
I do appreciate. I do enjoy,
which
that
is nice.
Of it.
But yeah, I had been trying to find some good podcasts about philosophy. Still haven't found one that isn't full of people mostly throwing around weird like ism words that I've never heard of in my entire life. So I can't get into any philosophy podcast yet because they're too jargony.
Maybe someone can recommend one for us.
Yeah, so hopefully somebody can. There was one that I was listening to that was great, and then they just stopped after 20 episodes. So that was
once you
they ran out of
they
ran out of all the philosophy.
Yeah,
they did all the
talk about.
They did all the philosophy. And there was one that I found that I definitely don't recommend, but I think it's worth noting is I think it was called something like This Week I Learned. And it was a single person, and basically they would compile all of these news articles about scientific studies. And then they would talk about all these amazing new things that had happened in science over the past week. Usually focused around like nutrition, dieting, sleep, all the stuff that gets really, really sensationalized in the news.
And it's
And
probably a bad science to start out with.
yeah, the science was bad. The reporting on it was even worse. And then it's going through this next person down the chain of command who's interpreting a bad article about bad science badly. And so I listened to one episode of it, and then I was just like screaming the whole time. I'm like, oh no, like so many people are going to be misinformed by this.
So we got the Butterscotch stamp of disapproval.
Disapproval, yeah. So I think one important note
That is true. That every once in a while I hear these things and I start getting angry. I'm like, there are going to be thousands of people listening to this and just now being wrong.
Yeah.
About important stuff.
So, as with all things, anybody can have a podcast, as we are demonstrating,
Clearly.
whether they're qualified or not. So,
yeah.
Just be sure to be a critical thinker about the things that you're consuming. But otherwise, The Adventure Zone. The Adventure Zone is a Dungeons and Dragons podcast by the McElroy brothers.
And that one is still good.
Super good. It is, it takes a while for them to put those episodes together because it's a couple weeks per like there's a lot of editing that goes in. They really trim it down to make it really punchy and stuff. But it's really good. And if you're not really into Dungeons and Dragons, listen to it anyways, because
It's fun.
it's just hilarious. All right. So next question comes from just some dude who says, if you were forced to get a tattoo of any video game character, who or what would that be?
Forced.
There's a gun to your head. There's two guns to your head. One gun to your knee and another gun just off to the side, just in case.
Right.
And you got to get a tattoo.
So there's 4 guns?
There's 4 guns.
So there's 4 people?
There's 3 guns to your body. One person is somehow holding all 3 of them.
Right.
Okay. They got a knee gun pointed at your knee.
They're probably using their knee to hold that gun.
I'm painting a picture of this question so that we get a better sense
It's
of
very spooky.
Right. So there's
also a ghost holding a gun.
There's a ghost holding a gun. There's a person holding 2 guns to either side of your head, which is dangerous for them because if they shoot, they're going to also shoot through your head and shoot themselves in the hand.
Right.
But they don't even care because that's how crazy they are.
You're getting a tattoo.
Because you're getting this tattoo.
So the question is, like, if you were forced to get a tattoo of a video game character, I guess that's the question. What would you force on someone to get a tattaoo of?
Of a video game character?
Right?
Well, yeah.
Because,
Here's the question.
But it sounds like we get to choose.
Well,
It
this
just has
is
to be
the
a
weird
video game
part
character.
is somebody is putting 2 guns to your head and a ghost is putting a gun to your knee and they're saying you have to get a tattoo
of a video game character.
just literally any video game character.
What would you, if you're in a situation where you could essentially threaten someone's life and make them get a tattoo
but
of
they
a video game character?
still within a domain, they could choose.
No. I'm saying like, so you get to choose, right?
As the ghost?
So say
you're the ghost.
Wait
you're
a minute.
You're the antagonist in this.
Because
scenario.
I wouldn't. Am I being forced to force this person to do it? Because I wouldn't.
Maybe
I
that's
wouldn't
what the
put
ghost is
somebody-
doing. Maybe the ghost has the gun to the person that has the 2 guns.
Oh, and this makes sense then because you can't.
Now,
you
finally,
can't
this question makes sense.
Yeah,
It
you
was-
can't discern the motives of a ghost.
No, you can't.
You know.
You also can't know if how crazy they really
All
are.
right. So,
Will they
so
really
just
do
to
it?
kind
I
of
think
just
if
kind of
I-
reframe the question.
Okay.
if a ghost forced you to force somebody to get a tattoo of a video game that you demanded that they get, what would you have them get?
I would make them get Kirby tattooed on their face. But like with his mouth open.
So that their mouth is now Kirby's mouth?
So like their whole face is just a big hole.
Oh, man. I would. So I guess there's a question of whether we can ask the person, questions.
Are you? Well, I guess what's your goal though? Because my goal is.
What I want to know is where
the most antagonism possible.
I want to know where you're going to get this tattoo.
You can tell them where to get. I think it's that you tell them where and what. That's kind of the question of like, what's the most hideous or embarrassing thing you could force someone to get tattooed on?
You know what? For the irony of the situation, I would have them get a tattoo of one of the ghosts from Pac-Man.
Nice.
On their pec.
Just a pick, just like a small one. Just like a little.
Yeah.
Maybe you got a Pac-Man.
Kind of like upper chest area.
You get a Pac-Man that's approaching the nipple.
Yeah.
Also,
I think what
and then
I
also
would do
like tattoo more nipples in between the nipples so that it looks like a chain of the things that Pac-Man eats.
Perfect.
Yeah, what I would do, because clearly this is a situation we just all need to get out of alive, right? So what I would do is I would force them to I would go back to the ghost. I would take like the Mario ghost or something, right? And tattoo that under where the two barrels of my guns are.
Yeah.
Because ghosts then get bound to the tattoo, right? Because now,
you've locked them in with a
now I'm
curse.
just going to shoot, because now when I shoot though, it's not going to actually go into the person's head. It's going to go through the ghost tattoo and into the ghost.
That's right.
Which is the only way to kill a ghost.
Yeah.
And then we would all be saved.
You got to bind it.
Done.
You got to or you got to
bind it to someone's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a
very
risky.
tricky situation. You got to bind
I
it.
hope those are small bullets and a big tattoo.
It would have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the only situation in which, I think everybody gets what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also the interesting thing about it is that when you shoot through the tattoos and the ghost dies, the tattoos also disappear.
Yeah. Because it turns out they were temporary tattoos.
No, they were real, but they were just bound to the ghost. So now when the ghost
So
dies,
they were temporary.
So they were temporary then.
Only if the ghost dies.
In the sense that they're ethereally bound to a ghost.
Yeah, but
Temporally
ghosts
locked,
are
right?
normally immortal though, right? So like if you don't actually kill a ghost, then it is permanent.
Is the ghost
Which
immortal?
actually-
Because it's already dead.
Yes.
Can you be immortal if you've already died?
Yeah,
It can be
immortal
both,
means
why
living
not?
forever. I guess it would be
It's being dead forever.
muerto. Where it is permanently dead. I guess that's true of everybody who dies.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I guess if you're permanently undead though, because that's really what they are, right? Because they're still kind of a living entity.
They're dead, but somehow animated, basically.
So they're inanimate.
But animated
They're
means
inanimate.
to give life.
Inanimate objects.
So
It's an inanimate object. Yeah, that's right.
inanimate. All right. So I hope that answers that question. That was a
Seems
good,
perfectly clear.
perfectly clear. Kulabula asks, what spoken language would you guys like to learn? Assuming you were magically granted 2 extra hours per day to do so by an underachieving wizard who apparently has nothing else to do and also can't just give you the ability to learn the language.
All you can do is provide some extra time.
But can somehow manipulate the fabric of space-time
I don't know if he's
to extend the
underachieving.
day only for you and no one else.
And you're only allowed to learn a language in those 2 hours.
Well, so this comes to the conversation that Sam and I had yesterday
Interesting one.
about we probably already do have 2 hours in the evening.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what else are you going to do?
I think Chinese would probably be the one.
That's what I would do.
It's my wife's language, so that'd be good. Her family's language. I'm going there next year.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to make sure that I can talk to people.
Mm-hmm. And tell them to let you use chopsticks and not try to bring you spoons. That was my experience.
You know what would be? You know what you should do? You should ask for a second spoon and use the spoons like chopsticks.
Yeah.
You'd be like, I don't know, these were weird chopsticks.
Whatever you people do.
I don't know what kind of crazy cultural thing you guys have in this region using spoons using spoon-shaped chopsticks.
But when in Rome.
When in Rome, use 2 spoons like chopsticks.
Yeah,
as the
that
saying
totally
goes.
makes sense.
Adam, what would you learn? You would probably learn Chinese.
I'd
also.
learn Chinese, yeah.
Yeah, you guys are both married to Chinese speakers,
Mm-hmm.
so that sort of
makes sense.
given.
Would you learn Marathi?
Convenient.
I mean, obviously, I would learn Portuguese.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a couple countries where Portuguese is spoken.
Brazil.
So Brazil,
It's a good place.
I think probably what I would
Portugal.
learn actually, I would just go ahead and learn the universal language.
Yeah.
Which is the
So
one.
math.
No, just like the actual
I think it's
universal
just
language.
facial expressions.
Yeah. Well, no, it's the one where you just read somebody's like thoughts by how they just do things, So that you
but
just always
But it's
know
got to
what
be
people
a
are saying.
spoken language. So how do you speak it?
You just always are speaking it.
Oh shit!
Once you know it, you have to know it first, though, right?
No, I'd probably learn Hindi or Chinese.
Do you have to vocalize to speak?
To speak?
I mean, no, because like after you said
language?
that, I could tell you were now waiting, and there were just ellipses coming out.
Exactly.
Just
But if
by
you
looking at
hadn't
your face.
said it, and only just sat there staring, it would have been harder to discern what kind of an answer you wanted.
Some portion of my language is spoken and some not.
Yeah.
So what if you could just become a master of the
A
unspoken
master
language?
of body language.
Yeah.
Where
Because then maybe you could just...
you just walk into a room and you just give somebody a very particular combination of looks and
yes, sir,
gestures.
right away. That'd be good.
That's kind of like my dog.
That is also, but
basically,
that is also what happens in basically every fucking story, like in a book. Somehow characters just communicate like an entire thoughts to each other just by like, he raised his eyebrow in a way that indicated, and then it explains this
Indicated
entire
that he
thought
wanted
process.
me to put a gun to someone's head and force them to get a tattoo.
It was
So
the
I
only
did.
way we would take care of this ghost.
It's possible we misinterpreted the
But
intentions
it's also
of
the
ghost.
case. So this is actually kind of a trade-off is when you become a fictional character, you gain the ability to perfectly read body language, right?
True,
But
yeah.
you also lose the ability to understand when it's important to give somebody meaningful information in order to further the plot, right?
Yeah.
Because as we all know, if you ever watched the show 24, for example, that when it is the most opportune and most important time to tell information to the exact person who could solve your problem, you definitely don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely
Because you can't trust them, you know?
Yep.
So then you don't do that. Then 14 episodes later, they find out while your life has gone to complete shit because you just didn't say anything because you're a fictional character. And
That's right.
that's the trade-off, you know? All right, next question comes from Adamus, who says, I personally hate it when I see reviews for games and they say stuff like, I really love this game, but, and then they give it 3 stars. Do you guys have any video game related peeves?
Were we talking about game butts or were we talking about games? That's my first question.
Game butts.
The game butt, it's a 3 out of 5 star game butt.
3 out of 5 star game
Could've
butt.
done more squats.
I love this
Toned it
game
up.
butt. 3 out of 5 stars. I love this game, but it's game butt.
But this exact thing is a recurring joke in the office where
Yep.
we'll say about how much we love something and be like, and then just follow it up with 1 out of 5 stars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because this happens all the damn
Best
time.
cookie I've ever had. 3
But
out of
actually,
5
this
stars.
one bothers me a lot less than the one where somebody just gives it a 1 star and they say, this is fine, but if you do this, I'll give you 5 stars.
Yeah, when people believe that out of 10,000 reviews that they can hold a game hostage by withholding 1 of their 5 stars and demand some new
Who
feature.
do you think you are? What?
And the problem is as a developer, like in some of these stores, you have the ability to reply, right? But it's against the rules for you to just reply, be like, LOL, you know?
Yeah.
So you can't.
Is it against the rules? Wait, what are the rules?
I think if you're a little snarky, then
You can't
they'll
get
strip your
snark. You
privileges.
can't get
Will they do
snark
it?
to people. Yeah. So
But we don't
somebody,
use it anyway. So what if we just were snarky until we lost our
yeah.
privileges?
So somebody's like,
Yeah, I'm down.
I like this game. Could be better if it was in 3D. Make it 3D. I'll give you 5 stars. For now, I'll give it 4 stars. And you can just reply and be like, nah.
Nah.
That'd be great. But you can't. You can't do that. I think it's too snarky.
But I think there's people respect it a lot nowadays. I think because there's
Respect the snark.
Yeah, because so with the fact that everybody's reviewing everybody constantly in everything now, it's like your Uber
It's
driver.
refreshing to have somebody just be like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, actually, I love when I'm going through like Angie's List to find a plumber or something, you know? I love the ones where there's like, it's like all A's and then an F and there's just somebody complaining about something and then the person comes in and just snarky as
destroys
fuck.
them.
Yeah, and there's like, actually, this person did call, but then said all of these things that don't make any sense. And I was like, no, we can't do that. That doesn't make any sense. And then they yelled at me because I said I wouldn't do a thing that didn't make any sense. I'm like, I like this person.
Yep.
See what
Higher.
Yeah. Anytime I see a series of positive reviews and then like a negative review mixed in, I'm always like, that person's just a dick.
Yeah.
Well, I think
That's just an angry person.
It's an interesting thing too with the whole 5, like the star system, because Steam has switched to this, and I think Netflix has switched to this as well now, where they just use the thumbs up or thumbs down.
Yep.
Because the reality is like giving something 5 stars means a different thing than just saying, yeah, this is good, right?
Yeah.
And
Because the question is really, should I watch this?
do you need that level of detail?
Yeah, no, you don't. You don't need that level of granularity at all.
Well, because the way I always look at it is when I'm looking at games, I'm like, if it's below 4 stars, I'm usually very dubious.
Exactly.
Because that's 80% on Steam.
Exactly, and that means it's not recommended. And they've shown that in one of those GDC talks we went to, basically the Metacritic score of 80 is sort of the break even point, or the break point between games that tend to do basically better by a margin above than the games below. And because basically what that means is 80 is 4 out of 5, which you're like, this is good.
That means 1 in 5 people didn't like it, which again comes down to, that's a small enough fraction now that those people might just be angry.
Yeah.
So
who cares?
Or just have different tastes, which also who cares?
So,
I think it's
or
a bigger
some combination of being angry and having different tastes.
But the thing is, things don't have ratings only make sense for things like, does it work? Right?
Yeah.
How well does it work? That kind of stuff. But otherwise, it just all comes down to taste, and who gives a fuck? Because all you really care, because I don't think we need stars or anything. Like, we don't need to show it. We just need to basically say, which Netflix has started to do too. They actually put a little percent there of like how likely they think it is that you're also going to like that thing.
Right.
Which you can do just by letting everybody give thumbs up or thumbs down, see what you like relative to other people, and then be like, probably you will also like this. And that's all I want to know.
Right.
I don't care if somebody was kind of upset because they prefer crafting games and this crafting component.
I also noticed that Steam, so they have they're constantly making storefront changes and stuff. And I noticed that I opened it up last night and they recommended a game to me that I definitely would never play.
Yeah.
And they were like, just because it's just, I have no interest in this particular type of game.
Maybe we should make that. Was it a dating sim? Let's get on that.
Yeah, it was Emily is Away Too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I have nothing against it. I'm just not interested. So, and it recommended to me because somebody on my friends list.
Oh, yeah. That's been doing that too.
Yeah. And I'm like, what? I have like 150 people on my Steam friends list. What makes...
And you're not friends with them because they play the same games you do.
They're my friends.
They're just your friends.
So, yeah, that's an interesting problem too is...
Yeah, I need to turn that off. Is there a way to turn that off? They have some pretty good customization
Really
in there. Okay.
I'm going to be turning that off.
Yeah. Because I noticed that a little while ago too. It was some just like shitty looking thing. And it said, oh, your friend, whatever, recommended this. And I was like, or played this or whatever. And I was like, I know exactly why that person would play this.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Yeah. And then the next game that it recommended was like, we recommended this to you because you been playing games tagged like this. Right. And I looked at it, I was like, shit, yeah. That looks great. And then I put that on my wish list.
What was that? So we got our reviews back from our course that we taught. And this is one interesting thing because of course, course evals are a thing, right? So students are given a wand of power at the end of the course.
I guess you did rate your students also with grades.
We did.
Everybody rates each other.
Everybody rates is just like what you do nowadays, apparently. But we made it very clear when we told them we're like, okay, student, the course evals are up. If you could take 10, 15 minutes to do that sometime between now and the end of the course would be great because that way we can know how well we did. But also just keep in mind, we don't care. And I remember the look on the face was like this sort of,
we're like, just be honest. Cause
just remember you actually have no power.
Yeah. I don't care.
We were like, if you feel like we did a bad job, then just say so. Because honestly, like we're game developers. We're not college professors. So we're teaching this course as an experiment.
My identity is not tied to teaching this course at all.
Yeah. So if you feel like we did a shitty job, just say so. Give us a bad review.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay.
It's a refreshing
this
level
isn't
of
your
honesty.
Career. You can't get fired. You're not on it. You can also can't go up a ladder. You just,
it was just a
a
thing that we did for a semester.
It is really fun when people don't have that power over you though. It's very liberating.
People have the power over you that you let them have, or sometimes they just do have power over you, which sucks.
Yeah.
So anyways, I hope that answers whatever the question was. I think it's all the time we have.
There's one thing that we forgot to talk about, which we should not now, but we can later.
Okay.
Which is a news item, which is that Steam Direct announced a price.
Oh yeah. Just talk about it quick. $100.
It's $100.
$100 dues.
What is Steam Direct? What's the point?
So Steam used to have Greenlight, where if you were somebody who had a game and you wanted to publish it, but didn't have a publisher, didn't have a relationship with Steam, etc., then you could basically throw it out to the fans on Steam and be like, "Hey, do you guys want this?"
Importantly, it used to cost $100
per game or to do it.
To do it
When Greenlight was first announced, for like the first, I don't know if they ever actually made it that way or if they just announced it that way and then backtracked. But it originally was going to be $100 just to put your game onto Greenlight. There was a huge community backlash. Everybody said there's all these indie developers out there now who somehow were able to spend 2 years of their life making a game and still remain financially solvent.
Save $1,
but then couldn't over the course of 700 days of development save a handful of pennies every day to get their game onto Greenlight. So that was the argument.
And then, of course, we ended up with a bunch of garbage in Greenlight.
So there you basically go. The Steam Direct, they were debating between a minimum of $100 or a maximum of $5,000 to be able to just literally what you do is you pay the fee and you put your game on Steam. So there's
which is how
no curation. Mobile does it a little bit differently, which is that mobile is like a one time.
Oh, right. Yeah. You pay as a developer per year, but not per game, which, as we said before, we think it should be per game. So,
and again, the reason it's not to keep people. It is to keep people out actually.
It's to keep unprofessional stuff out.
So, the reality is that it's at $100 and probably it's going to do nothing. I'm not sure what the point is.
It's not high enough.
It's a low enough number that people can, if they're having a hard time coming up with the money, they can postpone their launch or something and come up with the $100. Or they can find a publisher who will just be like, yeah, we'll front the $100, no problem, right? If you have in any way a remotely decent game, finding $100 to get it published should not be an issue. But I think that may just be true in general. Like if you're really determined, no matter the quality of your game, you can get the $100.
Well, I think it will cut down on stuff that we see a lot in the mobile stores, which is like student games and hobby games and stuff that people just like want to put out and also put out thinking, well, like I can just do it. Right. And maybe I'll get lucky. And that's basically the strategy I think the vast majority of people publishing on mobile have is just, I made a thing. It is what it is. Maybe I'll get lucky and then put it out.
I will say you can still put your games up on itch for free. So if you're looking for a platform to just put something out there without the intention of it being a commercially viable product or it's an experiment or whatever, like there's still platforms for that. Right. I think it's just understanding the purpose of any given platform, and Steam is a commercial games platform. So,
and hell, maybe you can raise $100 by selling your game
on itch
and use that to put it up on. There's always a way. Like these things don't keep out people who really
are determined.
And I think it might still not keep out enough people who aren't actually determined, right? And just kind of like throw a little bit of money at it. But I do think this is better. This is better than the mobile model of just the yearly developer fee.
It is. And the thing is, the truth is, this does not affect us.
It doesn't affect us, and it won't affect anybody but hobbyists and people who are doing this like really part time, or people who are just super strapped for cash. Which again, that's gonna be a rare person who's making a commercially viable product who's also that strapped for cash. So I don't know,
but in which case they can get a publisher.
Yeah, right.
So
there are ways,
which doesn't cost you anything, and actually, if it's a good publisher, the publisher will also fund your development and do everything else, right? So there's plenty of ways. So our thought, probably nothing's gonna happen.
But I am curious to see just how it looks though. Just again compared to mobile stores.
Well, we were like, oh shit, maybe we should put Quadrupus and Talfight up there because it only costs $100 now instead of like
let's
6
throw
weeks.
our garbage on.
I mean,
no, they're solid games.
But
I think Talfight is not. It would need to be re-engineered for PC because it has all these touchscreen controls and stuff like that. But it does open up the option for that. So that's about all we know.
Cool.
All right. So we'd like to thank our studio wrangler, Monique, who is back, and she put this episode together for us. We'd also like to thank our producer, Fat Bard, for making us sound decent.
Despite our best efforts
to sabotage everything. Last week, we laid our laptop on the microphone cord to Adam's microphone, which then caused all kinds of magnetic interference, but somehow Fat Bard still managed to salvage the audio. So hopefully this time we fucked it up good enough that he can't redeem it.
It's a perpetual arms race.
Yeah. We'd also like to thank the rest of the Butterscotch dev team, Andy, Tifa, and Sher, for just continuing to kick ass and build cool stuff.
And chew bubblegum.
But they're running out of bubblegum, so they're pretty much just going to have to kick ass all day now. Right. We'd also like to thank our community moderators who keep our Discord and forums running. And we'd like to thank our listeners, of course, you all, for coming back every week to listen to us talk about shit.
You're a little salty today.
Yeah. Well, it's Tuesday.
Solid day.
So also, if any of you want to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, hop into our Discord server. It's at bit.ly/bsdiscord. We're in there a lot. Other people are in there a lot. We have like 150 regulars. So just hop on in. Also, we don't advertise this show, so we depend completely on word of mouth. So if you want to help us grow, tell your friends, tell your enemies, if you hate the show, tell your enemies about it. Just throw it into their laps and see how much worse their life gets.
Yeah.
Then go ahead and hit up iTunes. Give us some stars, 3, 5, possibly 7 stars. That'll help us.
All those other lower reviews.
Yeah. Every little bit helps.
Gotta pull up that average.
Yeah. So thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.